She was just 2 years old, blonde hair, bright eyes, a smile that could melt your heart. On December 2nd, 1999, little Kristen Salem was picked up from daycare by her father, Shawn Ryan Grell. They went to McDonald's for dinner. It seemed like any other evening. A dad treating his daughter to chicken nuggets and a happy meal. But by nightfall, this innocent little girl would be crawling through the Arizona desert, on fire. And the man who lit the match? Her own father. Why would a parent do the unthinkable to their own child? Stay with me, because this story gets darker than you can imagine. December 2nd, 1999, Mesa, Arizona. The desert air was cool that evening. Christmas was just weeks away. Shawn Grell, 25 years old, had picked up his 2-year-old daughter, Kristen Salem, from preschool. To everyone watching, he looked like any caring father. They went to McDonald's. He bought her dinner. Maybe she played with a toy from her Happy Meal. Maybe she laughed at something silly he said. The staff probably smiled watching. Them together, father and daughter, such a sweet sight. But something was wrong with Shawn that day. Something dark was brewing in his mind. After dinner, he didn't take Kristen home to her mother. He didn't tuck her into bed with a bedtime story. Instead, he drove to a gas station in Mesa. He purchased gasoline and a container to carry it. Then he drove deeper into the desert, to a remote area near Apache Junction, far from help, far from witnesses. What happened next would shock investigators, haunt a community, and create a legal battle that would last for decades. Picture this remote stretch of Arizona desert. Dark, quiet, nothing but sand and scrub brush for miles. According to police reports, Kristen began to complain of being tired and wanted her mommy. Shawn got upset with Kristen, and he hit her in the mouth with the back of his hand. That's when something snapped inside him. For reasons unknown, Shawn decided that he would kill Kristen, the investigation report would later state. He took this innocent child, his own daughter, and laid her down in the dirt. He poured gasoline over her tiny body and set her on fire. I want you to imagine that moment. A father's hand holding a match. A toddler waking up in unimaginable pain and terror. Kristen didn't die immediately. She crawled on fire, burning alive, roughly 10 to 12 feet across the desert sand before collapsing. Her body was discovered the next morning, too late. After committing this horrific act, Shawn didn't stay with his daughter as she died. He didn't call for help. He got in his car and drove away. He stopped at another store and bought beer, acting like nothing had happened. But guilt has a way of eating at you. Even the most hardened criminals crack under the weight of what they've done. Eventually, Shawn turned himself into police, and what he told them at his confession still haunts investigators today. I decided that I was going to go ahead and do it. I took my daughter's life away from her on December 2nd, 1999, in a very sickening way. He claimed voices told him to do it, that he believed death was kinder than life for his daughter. But here's what's truly chilling. There were no previous signs of abuse, no warning signs, no red flags that anyone noticed. One day he was a father buying his daughter a Happy Meal. The next, he was a child killer. Grell was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death in 2001. The evidence was overwhelming. His fingerprints on the gas can, his confession, and the burn patterns on little Kristen's body that told the horrific story of her final moments. The public demanded the ultimate punishment. This wasn't just murder. This was a parent destroying their own child in the most brutal way imaginable. But then, something unexpected happened. During his time on death row, psychiatric experts examined Shawn's mental state. They discovered something that would change everything. His IQ fell below 70, indicating intellectual disability. In 2002, the U.S. Supreme Court had ruled in Atkins versus Virginia that executing someone with intellectual disability is unconstitutional, cruel, and unusual punishment. In 2013, the Arizona Supreme Court unanimously overturned his death sentence, reducing it to life in prison. The court acknowledged that the killing was horrific and devastating to the family, but the law was clear. This decision sparked fierce debate. Some said it was justice, that a man with diminished mental capacity couldn't be held to the same standard. Others argued it denied true justice to an innocent child who had no chance to defend herself. For over 2 decades, Shawn Grell lived in prison. He was housed at ASPC Tucson facility, serving his life sentence. The case faded from public memory. Kristen Salem became another tragic statistic, her killer forgotten behind bars. But then something happened that brought this case roaring back into the headlines. On April 19, 2025, Shawn Ryan Grell was found dead in his prison cell. He was 50 years old. No cause of death was revealed, but Arizona Department of Corrections confirmed that all inmate deaths are investigated. Natural causes, medical emergency, something more sinister? Prison is a dangerous place. Child killers are especially vulnerable. Other inmates have their own sense of justice. Was this simply the end of a life sentence? Or was this justice finally being served in a way the courts couldn't deliver? Here's what keeps me awake at night about this case. How does a father go from buying his daughter a happy meal to setting her on fire just hours later? What was really going through Shawn's mind that December evening? Were there warning signs that everyone missed? Could this tragedy have been prevented if he'd gotten mental health treatment earlier? And what about his death in prison? Officials say an investigation is ongoing, but will we ever know the truth? Some say justice was never truly served. A little girl was murdered in the most horrific way possible, and her killer lived for 25 more years. Others argue that justice finally caught up with him behind bars. But here's what I keep coming back to. This isn't really about Shawn Grell. It's about Kristen Salem, a 2-year-old who never got to see her 3rd birthday, who never got to start school, make friends, fall in love, or have children of her own. She never got to see those Christmas lights her father promised to show her that night. Instead, her last moments were filled with unimaginable pain and terror, crawling through the desert sand while her own father watched. That's the real tragedy here, not the legal battles or the prison death decades later. It's the life that was stolen, the future that was destroyed, the innocence that was shattered in the most brutal way possible. So I'll leave you with this. When a parent betrays the most fundamental trust, protecting their child, can justice ever truly be served? Shawn Grell spent over 23 years in prison before his death. Some say that's not nearly enough for what he did. Others say his intellectual disability meant he could never fully understand the gravity of his actions. But what do you think? Was justice served when his death sentence was overturned, or did justice finally come for him in a Tucson prison cell on April 19, 2025? Tell me in the comments below. Do you think there's more to his prison death than officials are revealing? And if this story affected you the way it affected me, hit that like button and subscribe for more true crime cases that will keep you up at night. Because the truth is, monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like caring fathers buying their daughters happy meals.